Number 5. The Andrea Doria. Built in Genoa, Italy during the 1950s, the 701.5-foot-long luxury cruise ship SS Andrea Doria was the country's largest, fastest, and safest passenger vessel when it first hit the seas. But in January 1956, less than 4 years after entering service, she collided with the Swedish ocean liner MS Stockholm off the Nantucket coast amid heavy fog. The ship slowly began to list as she took on water, and 11 hours later, she slipped completely beneath the waves. She came to rest along the border of a continental shelf at a depth of 240 feet. Although 46 people tragically perished in the disaster, 1,600 survived thanks to the vessel's slow sinking, as well as the effective response and rescue effort that ensued. As of 2017, at least 16 people have died visiting the Andrea Doria wreck, including experienced scuba divers. Some have even come to call it the Everest of shipwrecks, alluding to how it's considered a major achievement to visit, a testament to the willingness among the divers to risk their lives to put the accomplishment under their belts. Despite the high number of fatalities, visitors continue to flock to the wreck due to its legendary status, as well as rumors that it contains a large amount of money and valuables. The deaths have been attributed to numerous causes, including the strain that the water's pressure and cold temperature put on the human body. Rising to the surface too quickly can cause a deadly condition known as the bends, and at such an extreme depth, an equipment malfunction can easily prove deadly. It's also speculated that some divers become disoriented while inside the wreck, where visibility is poor and currents can change with little to no warning. The wreck is also dangerous due to its deteriorating condition. While it remained pristine for some time after it sank, it's actively decayed for many years now. But none of these hazards are enough to stop those who are determined to acquire the bragging rights that come with diving to the Andrea Doria wreck. Number 4. SS Valencia. After serving as a troop ship in the Spanish-American War, the iron-hulled passenger steamer SS Valencia resumed its regular passenger service along the U.S. West Coast between San Francisco and Alaska. However, the 252-foot-long vessel had fallen out of favor among customers due to its outdated design, small size, and vulnerability to the elements. Navigating poorly during winter and slower than modern ships, the Valencia had also gained a reputation for carrying an excessive number of passengers, which raised safety concerns. The Valencia had encountered several accidents before its ill-fated final voyage. In 1902, it collided with another ship, puncturing its hull. Fortunately, the damage was above the waterline, preventing a catastrophic outcome. 3 years later, though, it ran aground in Alaska, but luckily there were no injuries. Becoming a backup vessel after these incidents, the unpopular Valencia set sail on January 26, 1906 from San Francisco with 9 officers, 56 crew members, and 108 passengers aboard. The ship encountered severe weather conditions that night, making celestial navigation impossible and forcing the crew to rely on dead reckoning. Tragically, the vessel struck rocks in Canadian waters, causing a significant breach in the hull before being lifted off the reef by a massive wave. With water flooding the ship, the captain deliberately grounded it to avoid immediate sinking. The Valencia came to rest just 300 feet from the shore. Amid chaos and panic, the lifeboats were mishandled, leading to 3 of them capsizing while being lowered into the water. 2 other lifeboats also capsized and 1 disappeared without a trace. As the Valencia broke apart and was battered by the waves, many passengers were swept into the sea, desperately clinging to debris while nearby ships' crews helplessly looked on. Of the 12 men who managed to reach the shore, 3 were tragically washed back out and lost their lives. The remaining 9 survivors sought refuge in a cabin, where they were eventually rescued. Around the same time, a lifeboat with 8 skeletons on board was reported by the wife of a New Chandel fisherman, but the treacherous conditions prevented recovery attempts. Several other people also reported similar sightings in the following months. Survivors of the disaster shared chilling stories of witnessing a phantom ship trailing behind them, while they were transported to Seattle on another vessel. This ghostly ship eerily resembled the Valencia and seemed to sail directly toward the same rocks where the tragic sinking occurred. The ghost ship allegedly signaled to their vessel but didn't cause any further incidents. In 1910, sailors reported seeing a ship resembling the Valencia near Pachina Point, the area where the ship sank. Such sightings and tales of skeleton-filled lifeboats have persisted for over a century, adding to the mysterious legacy of the Valencia. The wreckage of the ship can still be seen to this day, drawing curious visitors and keeping the haunting stories alive. Number 3. MV Salem Express. The roll-on, roll-off passenger vessel MV Salem Express experienced a series of troubling incidents that began even before she entered service in 1967. In 1966, her maiden voyage under the name Fred Scamaroni was delayed by an engine room fire. After repairs, though, she began operating along her first route between the French cities of Marseille and Ajaccio in June of that year. The ferry experienced her first collision the following year in 1967, and 3 years after that, a fire broke out during a voyage to the French commune of Bastia. Then, a decade later, in 1980, the Salem Express ran aground, but she remained in service, and in 1988 she was sold to the Egypt-based Samatour Shipping Company, who renamed her the Salem Express and operated her along the route between Suez, Egypt, and Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The vessel's worst and final mishap came in 1991, while sailing from Jeddah to the Egyptian port town of Safaga. After being delayed for 2 days due to mechanical issues, the Salem Express departed from Saudi Arabia during a heavy storm. Along what would have been otherwise probably an ordinary journey, the ship deviated from her usual route. She ran aground along a coral reef less than 10 miles off the Egyptian shore, ripping its bow door open and causing seawater to rapidly flood into the car deck. It took just 20 minutes for the Salem Express to sink with hundreds of passengers trapped aboard, but the exact number of deaths is unknown due to conflicting news reports and claims. According to the official record, there were 644 casualties, but other sources have put the number as high as 850. Either way, the number of people who drowned is a lot higher than 180 who survived. In the initial aftermath of the disaster, reports claimed that the vessel drifted off course amid high winds. Investigators found no evidence of wrongdoing on behalf of the captain, but allegations later arose that he deviated from the normal route and took an unauthorized turn. This theory was backed up by several crew members who said that the captain was in a hurry, and the fact that he was known for taking shortcuts raised even more suspicions. The Salem Express wreck sits at a depth of 105 feet below the water surface. It's a controversial dive site due to the especially tragic nature of the disaster and because the victims' belongings remain scattered along the sea floor. Human remains have also been spotted among the wreck, even though that there was an effort to recover as many bodies as possible. While visiting the wreck is permitted, a lot of local guides refuse out of respect for the lost lives and the impact the disaster had on the local community. Many visitors to the wreck have reported feeling unsettled afterwards, and one diver even claimed to hear voices during his experience. Would you visit the Salem Express or another wreck that met a similar fate? Or do you think it's best just to let the sunken ship and its victims rest in peace? Let us know what you think in the comments down below, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Number 2. The Patriot. Theodosia Burr Alston was the daughter of the disgraced 3rd U.S. Vice President Aaron Burr, who you've definitely heard of if you've seen the musical Hamilton. Theodosia's husband, Joseph Alston, was also South Carolina's governor during the War of 1812. Shortly after Joseph Alston was sworn into his position, Theodosia set sail for New York aboard a schooner called the Patriot. At the time, she was suffering from some health issues caused by the anguish she experienced after her son's death. Theodosia was on her way to visit her father, who'd recently returned from Europe. And because her husband was busy with his political commitments, she was accompanied by a man named Timothy Green, who had some medical knowledge in case the need for it arose during the voyage. The Patriot departed from South Carolina on New Year's Eve, with plans for a swift journey north to unload a cargo of spoils from privateering raids. At the time, the famously fast ship's name had been painted over and her guns had been hidden below deck. No major problems were expected, yet the Patriot was never seen or heard from again after it left port. Among the rumors that flew in the wake of the vessel's disappearance was the suspicion that the Patriot had been captured by a pirate. Refusing to believe that his daughters had fallen captive to pirates, Aaron Burr resigned to the theory that the Patriot had wrecked with fatal consequences. And over the following decades, more theories surfaced as researchers worked to solve the mystery of the vessel's disappearance. Many speculated that the Patriot had wrecked near Cape Hatteras off North Carolina, an area that remains infamous to this day for its hazardous conditions. It's also been theorized that the vessel may have been lured into the area by pirates, who deliberately wrecked and raided ships. One way they did this was by walking a horse up and down the coast with a lantern around its neck. A passing ship's crew would see the light bobbing up and down and mistake it for a safely anchored vessel. While traveling in that direction, however, the ship would wreck on the shoals, and pirates would proceed to plunder it. There's also been speculation that everyone aboard the Patriot was murdered, and there are varying versions of the pirate-related legends surrounding the ship's disappearance. But nobody knows which, if any, of these stories are the true version, or if the Patriot met some other fate. Number 1. The Mary Celeste. Built in Nova Scotia, Canada in the mid-19th century, the 103-foot-long Mary Celeste was a two-masted merchant vessel called a brigantine. In 1867, she ran aground during a storm and was abandoned by her original owners. And from there, she fell into American hands and proceeded to undergo a major refit. In late 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York Harbor for Genoa, Italy, under the command of Captain Benjamin S. Briggs. Also traveling aboard the ship were his wife Sarah and their young daughter and 8 crew members. Back then, the telegraph didn't exist. There was no communication between ships unless they were within sight of each other. So there was typically no way to know that something went wrong along a ship's voyage until it failed to show up at its destination. Several weeks after the Mary Celeste departed from New York, the captain of a British brigantine called the Dei Gratia spotted the vessel moving erratically in choppy seas at full sail, roughly 400 miles east of the Azores. Nobody could be seen on deck, and the Dei Gratia captain's signals went unanswered. When some of Dei Gratia's crew members boarded the Mary Celeste, they discovered that it was completely empty. A lifeboat was missing, and the hold was flooded with several feet of water, but the ship was otherwise undamaged, and it was stocked with 6 months' worth of provisions. There were no obvious signs of anything going majorly wrong, and the last entry in Mary Celeste's logbook was dated 9 days earlier. By all appearances, the ship had been evacuated in an orderly fashion. But to this day, nobody knows why, and the fate of everyone aboard remains a mystery. Rumors whispered about the possibilities of an alcohol-fueled mutiny, violence between the crew members, and an insurance scam. But when the Dei Gratia towed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar, investigators found no signs of foul play. At the time of Mary Celeste's recovery, maritime law dictated that a salvor could receive a generous cut of the assessed value of a rescued vessel and its cargo. So, a judge who oversaw the Dei Gratia owner's salvage claim begrudgingly awarded the vessel's captain with 1/5 of the total value of the Mary Celeste and her cargo. Do you know of any other stories about haunted shipwrecks? If so, tell us about them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.